Hello again, welcome to the Ref Show. We introduce a new face to the panel, a sorely needed new face, ain't that right, David
Sorry for
Hirst?
turning up.
Yeah. Two old faces and a new face, but a face that's been around. Paul Rejer. Now, you may not recognise the face, but you'll recognise the name, I'm sure. A former Premier League official, formerly in charge of Premier League assistant referees, and more recently, part of the management team of pro referee in America, the officials that run the line and take the middle in MLS.
Yeah.
So welcome, Paul Rejer.
Thank you.
It's really good to see you. You've travelled a bit further than Hirsty and I to the studio because you've just jetted over from the States just to be with us. So much appreciated. And casting an eye on all the Premier League, it must be interesting for you having been so closely involved in it. So sort of as a long distance view, what do you make of standards of officiating currently in the Premier League as a snapshot?
From what I see, I think it's very good. Generally, I mean, I see games. I see the standards are good. Obviously, there's always going to be an incorrect decision from time to time, but that's the way it is. That's the game. That's the game. Referees aren't robots. They're not perfect. Sometimes they're going to get something wrong. And then we look at the reasons why they got it wrong, and educators like me in the game look at that, and we see what can be improved next time.
The great thing that you've been party to in America is pretty much an educational program for the referees who've been working for you and for the public, because you'll have like a play of the week.
Yes.
You'll put a video out.
Yeah.
You'll not be afraid to say, well, the official actually got this one wrong.
Yeah.
But this is why he got it wrong.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely, because I think it's, I mean, referees are their own worst critics anyway, that they self-examine their performances. And so straight after the game, the referees will always be thinking and reviewing their performances and reviewing decisions. And so straight away, they're their own worst critics. And then they've got people who work for them within the PGMOL, for example, and within Pro, as I used to be doing, who will also analyse those incidents and discuss them with the referees. So it's part of an ongoing education program that really it's just a learning curve that they go through.
And you're trying to bring some of that to You Are the Ref.
Yes, absolutely.
Some of those techniques, and I think that's good.
Yeah, it's great to look to move forward like that. But I think what we've got with the game, those decisions that have been made today, the wrong decisions, have been made since the game started. It's just now there's more scrutiny on it.
You would know.
Yeah.
Well,
exactly. You were there when the game
started. Yeah, not quite. But you take away the 47 cameras and just leave the 3. There's less mistakes.
Yeah.
Indeed, that's a very good point, succinctly made.
Yeah.
So let's have a look at some of the key incidents in the Premier League over the weekend. And naturally, the ones that are perceived as mistakes do get all the exposure and all the attention. So we look at those first. And in particular, the Manchester derby. And first of all, just an amazing game. Manchester City 2, Manchester United 3. I mean, at half time, it was should have been 6-0 to City or something thereabouts.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a little stat that United had 3 shots on target. In the game, won the game. Yeah. So we've seen it at Liverpool with Man City dominating the game, but coming out on the wrong end of it.
Well, Martin Atkinson was in charge of this, much praised by You Are the Ref panellists, including Keith Hackett, who I read his Daily Telegraph column, but very critical of this particular performance from Martin Atkinson, and you can see why. City denied, I mean, both these incidents involved Ashley Young. The claim is that City were denied 2 penalties in that game, one for handball and the other one, well, for a very nasty challenge. What's your take on that, Paul?
Well, on the first one, I saw Ashley Young's slip, and the ball seemed to strike his outstretched arm. I mean, if you slip, you've got to break your fall. So he puts his arm out to break his fall, as I say. I wouldn't regard that as an unnatural movement. I would say that was a natural movement. And the ball hit his arm. So I don't think that was a penalty, personally.
But the second one, I mean, it could have been a red card challenge, let alone a penalty. This was Ashley Young on Sergio Aguero.
Yeah, the second one, I think it was a penalty and it was a red card challenge. But if you look back at it, and see what happened in the build-up to it, you'll see why perhaps Martin Atkinson didn't see it. I don't believe he had a clear view of it.
Should the assistant have helped him out on that?
Well, let me just go back to why Martin didn't see it.
Yeah.
I think in the early build-up to it, it's deep. They're deep in their own half, Manchester City. Martin steps back to allow the play to continue rather than get in the way. Play continued, but by his stepping back motion, it meant it was lagging behind play, basically. He'd got a lot of ground to make up. And he did make up a fair bit of it, but by sort of stepping back that little bit, if he hadn't have had to do that, if he could have started moving as soon as the quick break happened, he'd have been 10 to 15 yards in front of where he was. His finishing position when the challenge went in, I think he was blocked by a number of players. So if he'd have got that extra 10, 15 yards, he would have been a total closer proximity, but also a far better angle, and he would have seen it. I think from where his angle, he's possibly only seen part of it, and has only got part of the information. So
he can't make.
He can't make the whole. He might not have seen Ashley Young's foot go up as it did. Now the assistant referee, I think it's difficult for assistant referees. He could have assisted him, but I think it's difficult for assistant referees because assistant referees aren't totally 100% looking at failed challenges. He's got an offside decision to make, perhaps. So he's looking across the line, and he may have seen something out the corner of his eye, but you can't make a decision on something you're not 100% sure about. You've seen out the corner of your eye. So perhaps the assistant referee could have helped him.
You're illuminating us on how these things happen, which is very interesting.
Which is great. I mean, I totally get what Paul's saying there, but I mean, we've got 3 officials out there. I think between the 3 officials, there's 60,000 seen the incident. Some did jumps up and down, but some, that's what they're there to make the decisions. They're going to make mistakes. I've said it all along on this show, referees will make massive mistakes, to be fair, at times. And that was one for me. And I think just to the point we go to with VAR, where we go, it takes 3 minutes, 7 minutes, whatever minutes it takes. That assistant, or even the VAR assistant, who could have a better view of it because everything is not blocking it, and he thinks, excuse me, ref, can I have a word with you? This is what I saw. But this is what I saw. We're trying to get to the end result of the right decision.
Tell me, had you been a Aguero and a challenge had come in on you like that, you'd have taken a pretty poor view of it, wouldn't you?
To be fair, I had a number of challenges like that, but it was okay pretty much back then. Like I said, there was less cameras and less scrutiny. But of course you would. But you'd expect the penalty, and I'm never one for condoning getting people sent off. But if the rule is reckless, which it was, dangerous, which it was,
out of control,
so the right decision has to come from the 3 officials for me.
Later in the game, a frustrated Fernandinho challenged Lingard in a very severe fashion. Should he have gone? He didn't.
Well,
I mean, it's again, we're looking to get the right decision now. It's the group of. I go back to what I said. The group of officials have got to come to the right situation. They see it as that. If it doesn't go, we sit watching TV and watching at the games. We have different opinions at times.
Right. Later in the show, plenty on the Championship. Neil Warnock gets a mention. Cardiff Wolves, several days on, is still a huge discussion.
We've not got the full transcript of that, though, have we? We're not allowed to use it all.
Well, no, there's only 2 words to remember.
It's a short transcript, but we can't use it.
Repeated over and over again. Need to go. I had a little smile that somebody was tweeting that the Football League were having to call in a lip reading expert to transcribe what Neil Warnock
I'll send them my number.
And also, it was noticeable, the bottom of the table scrap in League 2 between Grimsby and Chesterfield was refereed by a Premier League referee. I had a vested interest in that, and the result wasn't very good for my team. Derbies. We talked about the Manchester derby. We've got a London derby in a moment, but Everton-Liverpool 0-0. I thought it was a really good 0-0 from the bits that I saw. Remarkably, with Michael Oliver in charge here, there were no yellow cards whatsoever. Guy Beale, blogging the game for You Are the Ref, said it was a lesson in keeping your nerve by Michael Oliver. He kept the game going.
Finally, some credit.
That's great. He's a great referee. Yeah.
I mean, I didn't see the game, but I mean, people will make their own minds up. Were there yellow card situations that weren't given?
I think they were borderline, according to Guy.
Exactly.
And that he made a big call. Am I going to get involved here, or am I going to trust the players and keep it going? He made the latter, and the players helped him to see the game through.
Which was great.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm thinking that it can't have ever happened before in a Mersey derby.
In any derby, I think it's a tall order to ask for no cards at all.
It is, isn't it? Although Halsey, if he was here today, would tell you he did that in a Sheffield derby. He'd referee.
Yeah, because he'd probably left him in the dressing room.
Yeah, as usual. As usual, he'd forgotten to bring him. Kevin Friend was in charge of Chelsea 1, West Ham 1. Hey, there was only one card in that game as well.
Yeah.
You know, Arnautovic felt he should have had a penalty for West Ham.
We got to the right answer. I mean, I saw it a few times on replay, which obviously the referee doesn't have that option. And I think he got it spot on. It was very close, but I had to watch it 2-3 times before I see that the tackle was made correct.
If there's a doubt, you back the referee, don't you?
I think it could have been a penalty. However, I think that it wasn't enough of a penalty for it to be overturned on VAR, for example.
Yeah.
Right.
So I agree with you to a certain extent. I think he caught his foot before, and I'm not really thinking he had a touch on the ball, but he certainly took his foot first. So I'm thinking it was perhaps a penalty. Having said that, Kevin Friend was in a good position where you'd expect him to be, and the ball went to the left, and that's what the criteria that referees use. Because if the ball goes to the left, it's right to assume that the defenders
cleared it.
Played the ball,
Yes.
and that's all Kevin Friend would have seen. So I totally understand why Kevin didn't give the penalty. I don't think any referee would have given the penalty in those circumstances. So it doesn't deserve to be criticised for that decision.
Okay,
I won't tell you, Alan, where I watched the game, but round the table that I was sitting,
it wasn't at home, was it?
And there was Chelsea fans in there. It wasn't at home, no. There was Chelsea fans there, and they agreed all-heartedly throughout the place I was watching the game that it wasn't a penalty.
Well, they must be right then.
And the Chelsea fans said it wasn't a penalty.
Well,
So I'm going to
go
welcome the
with them.
referee.
Yeah.
Right, you mentioned VAR there. That's a topic for another day with Paul Rejer, particularly interesting because of the way it's been implemented and very successfully so, I believe, in MLS in America. So we'll talk about that another time. Chelsea, as everywhere, but particularly poignantly at Stamford Bridge, there was a tribute to Ray Wilkins, who sadly passed away last week. The tribute, I met him fleetingly once, you knew him better than me.
I mean,
the tribute's not only about his excellence as a footballer, the former Chelsea, Manchester United and England player, but his quality as a person.
I think you read everything this last week. You listen to the people talking about Ray, and I think pretty much football comes second because the guy, as we watched on TV, listened on radio, and everything about him was just a complete gentleman.
Yeah.
You know, if you walked into a room and he'd be the first one over to welcome you in there.
Yeah.
You know, he was that sort of person, you know, and hey, not taken away, what a great player. I mean, I saw the situation over in Milan when they presented the shirt onto the stand and everything. I mean, that's how great the player was.
Yeah.
You know, what a fantastic player for his clubs, for his country, represented the game throughout the world, really.
But even greater as a person.
And a great man. Yeah,
he must have been appreciated by referees as a player too, I'm sure.
Yeah, he was absolute gentleman. Yeah. I didn't know him particularly personally. No. I'd just like this juncture to bring Cyril Regis up because I did know Cyril.
Yeah.
And I think that Cyril was another gentleman. I think they were both absolute gentlemen.
And this is, you know, 61, Ray?
No age at all.
I mean, it's, as we say, these guys live on forever because they're legends in the game. Yeah. But, you know, taken far, far too early.
Yeah. I remember as a young reporter doing a match at Old Trafford and he didn't know me from Adam, Ray Wilkins, but he took the time and trouble to give that then young reporter an interview. Just courteous and classy was Ray. Terrific.
There's been many articles this last week about that side of Ray, you know, from all walks of life.
It's more important.
And to be fair, if anything that can be made an example of is to younger players, that it's not all about you. No. You know, and Ray was like that. It weren't all about him. It was making young players that are coming into the club, into the new international scene. He'd be over there taking them through it, you know, and learning them, giving them a process. And like I say, a lot of people have come out. I've seen loads of comments, ex-players, players at present, young players that have been in his realm and benefited from it.
Fitting tributes to Ray Wilkins. Another Sunday game, just briefly, Arsenal 3, Southampton 2, 2 stoppage time red cards there. Mohamed El Nelny of Arsenal and Jack Stevens of Southampton. Andre Mariner was in charge of that. It's just a suggestion that might have been diffused because there was a confrontation leading up to it between Stevens and Jack Wilshere, who kind of escaped with a yellow card. But it did seem that could have kind of been nipped in the bud, that one. Congratulations to Lincoln City, also Sunday action, winning the Checker Trade Trophy at Wembley in front of 41,000. That was Lincoln 1, Shrewsbury 0. Gavin Ward was in charge of that. A couple of complaints were made post-match. Matt Reed only cautioned for what appeared to be a blatant elbow on the Shrewsbury keeper. More about him in a moment. And should Shrewsbury have had a penalty for handball? The Shrewsbury keeper.
I must admit, I've seen the keeper, Dean Henderson, I mean, was described as one of the best saves that's been out this season, certainly, if not in the Premiership. And I didn't actually see the incident, but the person who reported it to me was, if that had been a Premiership game, that would have been shown all around the world this week.
Yeah.
You know, so well done to the keeper. On the imps, I mean, the fairy tale keeps going.
It does, doesn't it?
The brothers running the game at the moment.
The Cowley brothers are going to get plenty of offers, but when you've got a good thing going like that at a football club and it's rolling on, sometimes it can be better perhaps to see it through than be tempted to go elsewhere.
Alan, let's not kid ourselves about the game of football. What's at the end of the rainbow?
Well, I know somebody who could have joined Manchester United during his career, and he put a bit of pressure on his football club at the time, Sheffield Wednesday, but didn't.
Who put the pressure on?
Had he
I've never once knocked on a manager's door.
No, that's right. But had you done so, you might have got your move to Manchester United.
And at this moment in time, I could be on my boat in Barbados or doing the ref show.
Sitting here.
So there you go. How lucky are you?
I'm always lucky to be in your company.
To be fair, I'm not very good on the sea either.
Teams at the bottom of the table. John Moss was in charge of Bournemouth 2, Crystal Palace 2, which was a pulsating game. Anthony Taylor took Brighton and Huddersfield, which finished a point apiece. Davy Proper of Brighton was sent off for a challenge on Jonathan Hogg. Chris Hughton's comment, I thought it was harsh at the time. I think the at the time
so it
sort of
was a sending off.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
I didn't think it was harsh. I thought it was
bang on.
Bang on.
West Brom 1, Swansea 1 was Roger East's game. A very fit Roger East at something like 53 years of age, like a greyhound. And Graham Scott, Stoke 1, Spurs 2. Champions League beckons for Tottenham, and another goal there for Harry Kane.
You say that so...
Which he's claiming, but the Premier League has awarded to Christian Eriksen, who bent this free kick in. It possibly went straight into the goal, but as Kane climbed, didn't connect with his head, but it kind of clipped, well, he's saying it clipped his shoulder on the way in.
It's clutching at straws a little bit, but strikers union. I actually had a situation like that at Sheffield Wednesday. I scored 4 against Hull, and Paul Williams scored the 5th, excuse me, and that came off my hip. But I'd got 4, so I let him have it.
Yeah, very generous of you.
Would Harry do that?
He certainly would not. He certainly would not. Also in the Prem, Leicester 1, Newcastle 2. Stuart Atwell was in charge of this. Penalty claim in the first half. Mahrez and Dummett involved in that. Harry Maguire suggesting that he should have been sent off here. He'd only got a yellow card, a hand in the face of Dwight Gale. I don't know how you saw that one.
Yeah, I think Stuart had got a good position on that, and he was looking right into it. And they showed it from various angles, and I looked at it, and if he's pushed him in the face, then I think that's, in my opinion, that's a red card. But Stuart would know the intensity of it, and he'd get a feel for the atmosphere of the players, and I'm sure that he decided to manage it based on what he saw. If he's caught him in the chest, then he's given him a yellow card. So Stuart's decided it's worthy of a yellow card and it's not violent conduct. But if he's actually pushed him in the face, in my opinion, that should be a red card. Okay,
Burnley going strongly for Europe. Who'd have thought that? 2-1 victory at Watford. Paul Tierney was in charge of that. don't think there's any disputes or talking points. The referee banging form there, and congratulations again to Burnley. Coming to the Cardiff Wolves fallout in a moment. Just first of all, a League Two game had a Premier League referee in charge, and it was perhaps, considering the stakes and the importance to both Grimsby and Chesterfield, this was a reflection on that Bobby Madley was in charge, and he had a big call to make. And I'm a Chesterfield supporter, so I've only sort of seen stills and just one replay of this big handball call for Grimsby's winner, which came late on from a penalty. Their first win in 21 games. Chesterfield sadly are now bottom. Hit Sid Nelson, but the position is, some people say it was the shoulder, and the replay, I've got to appear, and even as somebody who didn't want that penalty awarded, it looks to be just below, and I think if it's just below the stitching, it's a hand, is it?
Yeah.
That's an arm.
That's all.
Right. Yeah. So sadly, I can't really go to town on that one.
So the guys with long arms are in trouble, aren't they, really?
Yeah, they are. Right, Brentford 1, Ipswich 0. The match-winning penalty was contested by Mick McCarthy. I haven't seen that, I've got to be honest. Robert Jones was in charge. Jeff Eltringham had Hull 4, QPR 0. Now, there was a sending off here of Nedum Onua late on, but Ian Holloway felt there was a scuffle involving another of his own players that led to that. He felt that Josh Scowen put in a tackle that was scandalous. This was his own manager saying that, and that Scowen should have been sent off. That was an interesting comment.
A little deflection situation, that really, I would say.
I'm not sure, because he's actually saying, yes, a player of mine should have been sent off, but it should have been this one, the earlier for the tackle. But he's always got something to say.
So in general, he's saying that the one that everybody's talking about wasn't a sending off.
Yeah, he's saying that this was the one that should have been.
Yeah, he's deflecting it off the actual incident that occurred. Yeah. Which Ian's very good at.
Leeds 1, Sunderland 1, before we come to Cardiff Wolves. Jeremy Simpson in charge. And there's no contest on this. Yet another Leeds red card. This was Gaetano Berardi, straight red. That's his third sending off of the season. He now gets a 5-game ban. His season's over. But significantly too, it was Leeds' 8th red card of the season. And yet then, I've seen them plenty of times. They're not a dirty team, believe me. Just
so
judgment.
His third red card, he gets a 5-game, so he's...
Third one of the season.
So he's now finished now?
Yeah. Yeah.
I must have got the holiday booked early then.
Yes, I was going to say, yeah. Now then, Cardiff Wolves, we all know what happened. I don't think any of us have seen anything quite like this before. Wolves win 1-0 at Cardiff, big championship game right at the top of the table. Mike Dean is in charge, never shirks a big call. Cardiff get 2 penalties in stoppage time. I don't think there's any dispute they were penalties either. They missed both of them. Incredibly, it's a victory to Wolves, and it's a big one. Nuno Espirito Santo explodes onto the pitch to join his players in celebration at the final whistle, and then it all kicks off because he hasn't exchanged the customary handshake with the aggrieved manager of Cardiff City. And then, as Santo goes to apologise to the aggrieved manager of Cardiff City, he gets told something a few times.
He didn't want to speak to him, to be fair. I mean, that's about
that's an interpretation of the 2 words over and over again as well.
Yeah. I mean, crazy. I mean, like I say, we know what Neil's about. We know he's always in the headlines. He does great with his football clubs. I think that's the side that he lets himself down. And I think this, the guy's tried to apologise. Neil says he ain't accepting this apology. I mean, the guy's not shook his hand. Now he's then offered to shake his hand.
So that's
what
wrong.
Is the time limit?
But is that a momentary thing? Although he's got form for this, apparently. Santo's done it before. But
to be fair, at the end of the day, we've had this before with when Mark Hughes and Wenger and them not shaking hands, and it's blown out. Hold on a minute, you're the manager of the opposition. I don't need to shake your hands. I mean, we're just saying that we're being gentlemanly and we're taking defeat. And if I don't like you, mate, I don't have to shake your hand.
No.
Now that might be the situation in the dugouts. Just because we're playing against each other doesn't now mean to say what's gone in the past. If it has, then I have to put that to one side.
This was emotion, pure emotion, taking over everybody. Both managers.
He's just won a game from staring defeat in the eyes. 2 penalties and they missed them, and it's sort of we're on his way to the championship here. So I'm not worried about Neil Warnock in that situation.
Well, Neil Warnock blatantly refused to accept any apology on the pitch or even after the game. He said, "I don't want to see him." But, two wrongs here. Should they get together now, or should Neil be saying, look, OK, I accept your apology, and let's
I think at some stage Neil will. I mean, we know, like I said, we've seen these incidents with Neil before.
Do you think he should?
Yeah. Neil's an emotional guy. He's a winner.
Know him?
Yes, I know Neil, and Neil was always very good towards me when I was refereeing. He was very courteous and a gentleman. So
every referee says that.
but that's how I find him. But I think Neil's an emotional guy, and as I say, he's a winner. And he'd be very, very disappointed after the game. Obviously, very emotional, and he'll allow that to take over. And I'm sure now this morning, when he's thinking about it, he might think differently. Yeah,
we'll see. But we go on to another roll of matches immediately, so it's very difficult to see how that will resolve itself and when it will. No, that's a very packed ref show this week, and it's been a pleasure to meet Paul Rejer and to hear his take and his perspective on officiating in this country and the key decisions over the weekend. We'll look forward to more conversations with Paul in the future, particularly about VAR at some stage, with your knowledge of that, and the other fella as well, thanks to him.
I was going to say, it just wasn't the privilege to meet me.
It's always a pleasure and a privilege, and for you to watch us as well. Thanks very much. We'll see you again for another ref show next week. Bye-bye. Bye.